welcome to the Hallmarkies podcast. And we're really excited today. We have another author interview for you today. And we are talking with Stacey Agdern. She's back on the podcast. And Stacey, welcome back.
Thank you so much for having me, Rachel. I love being here. I love coming and talking, whether it's about movies or books or whatever. Like, I'm just thrilled to be here. So.
We have so much fun. And it's kind of nice. This is sort of refreshing having, I don't know if we've had you on that many times, just like you, as opposed to coming on to talk about one of the Hanukkah movies or something like that. So this is, if we have, it's been a while. So I'm excited to have you back.
Me too. I'm excited to talk about just random stuff. So
yeah. So you have new book and coming out, and you have, I'm sorry, I'm probably going to say all this wrong, but B'Nai Mitzvah?
It's the B'Nai Mitzvah Mistake.
B'Nai Mitzvah Mistake.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So you have a new book coming out this month, which is very exciting. I got the chance to read it, really enjoyed it. But yeah, you've been super busy these last since we last talked to you at Christmas season.
Yeah, no, it's been wild. I am prepping for the launch of this series. I'm doing a bunch of podcasts, and I do my regular Chippy Chicks broadcast every month. Mm-hmm. So it's just a lot of fun, and it's been good. It's been very good.
That's very good.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're writing like more than one book at a time. How do you do that? How do you like keep everything straight?
So it really depends on the series itself. Like it really depends on the characters. Like first of all, I'm also a playlist writer. So like I change the music and I change the story in my head, if that makes sense. Like,
oh, really?
But the fun thing about the new series, it's actually the first time that I'm doing like a series that is not only character connected, but plot connected. There is a bit of a plot element that sort of sits as a through line between the 4 books in this series, which I do not want to spoil, but let's just say that the B'Nai Mitzvah Mistake is a prequel for the rest of the series that follows.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, because I think that would be hard to have different plots in your head and all kind of figuring them out and making sure that you don't kind of get them intermixed. But I guess if it's part of a series, that wouldn't be as much of a problem.
Exactly. And the books are so different. The one that I'm writing now, which is which I just finished, I should say, the most recent version of, which is the second book in the series. It's a completely different tone because you have completely different characters. So like this is more about different aspects of certain traditions, and the female main character has a different profession as well. So like that changes thing. And of course also like the different moods of the characters are different. So that story changes as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So do the people at Tool and the other people you work with, did they come and say, hey, we want this kind of story. We want a holiday, end of the year holiday story, or we want, something, different? Do they come to you and kind of tell you what they want, or do you go to them?
So with this particular series, I will say that I initially went to them with this idea, and then they said, could you give us Hanukkah? And I said, knowing that there was a story that I wanted to tell that I hadn't told in the Friendships and Festivals series that was left hanging, and there was a story that I'd thought of years ago that I'd always wanted to tell. So I tied those two things together, and that became book 3 in the series.
Oh.
So I had the idea of the Last Girl Standing series and said, I would like to write these books. And we went back and forth. And then when they had said, we want a Hanukkah story, is that possible? I said, absolutely, and added book 3.
Do you already have that done? Or are you working on it, or?
So that I've started it because the dance of writing the second book took a little bit longer than I normally expect, and also life has been nuts. I've started and I haven't finished it yet, because I had to focus back on book 2, The Dating Contract. So now that that's done, I'm going to send that in and turn my focus to book 3, which I would like to title The Dreidel Disaster, but that's an story entirely.
That's good. You should.
Ho, ho, ho. We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies Patreon.
Do you love Hallmarkies podcast, especially at Christmas?
Do you enjoy the holiday previews, recaps, interviews, and bonus episodes?
If the answer is yes, please consider supporting the Hallmarkies Patreon. We need your help to do what we do both during the Christmas season and all year round.
But not only do you help a podcast led by strong, independent women by becoming a Patreon, you get to become a part of the Hallmarkies family.
Starting at only $2 a month as a patron, you will have access to our Facebook Patreon group where we talk about the movies, shows, and more all year.
We also have many monthly patron watch-alongs with guests like Lacey Chabert, Natalie Hall, Paul Campbell, Mary Lou Henner, and more, giving their behind-the-scenes details of their films.
As a patron, you also have the chance to provide input into the podcast and even join us at different tiers.
So this Christmas season, spread some cheer to the Hallmarkies Patreon and become a member today. You won't regret it.
Go to patreon.com/Hallmarkies to learn more.
That's patreon.com/Hallmarkies.
So you've done Miracles and Menorahs, History of Us, and now this B'Nai Mitzvah Mistake. And so what have you learned about your own traditions and your own culture and faith? What have you learned from writing these stories?
So I think the first series, Friendships and Festivals, was like this indulgence for me because I'm hugely obsessed with Hanukkah, generally speaking. And so like a time where I had to explore traditions about my favorite holiday that I didn't know was a lot of fun. And I kind of also indulged my love for, as you well know, Hallmark movies as well. So like a lot of the tropes in that series were derived from watching 20 million Hallmark movies and also the contemporary romance. This series is a little different. This series, there's a little bit of Hallmark in them because, of course, like when you think about contemporary romance and tropes, you know, a lot of places, one of the places that sort of show it best is Hallmark. Though I've seen a bunch of different movies that are coming out from other places this year that are talking about the adult bar mitzvah, which is something that I address directly in B'Nai Mitzvah Mistake. But like diving back into that and thinking about like the process of becoming a bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah or b mitzvah as an adult, you know, was definitely something that I had experience about. I mean, I had my bat mitzvah when I was 12, the time for that for me was sort of the space for that was made by my family.
Yeah.
Whereas as an adult, when you have the ceremony as an adult, it's a whole other thing entirely. You have to make the space for that. You have to still, you have to learn Hebrew, learn, the things that you have to do, the reasons for the traditions. And it's this whole thing. And I didn't obviously have personal experience with that, but learning about it just absolutely like sort of floored me. When I was younger, my brother's childhood friend, his mom, had her bat mitzvah in her like late 30s, early 40s, because of a bunch of different reasons, and that had stuck with me for a long time. And sort of learning about the process made me appreciate what she'd done that much more.
Yeah, I didn't know that it was something that adults did. I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah.
But I'd only ever heard of it for teens. So it was very interesting.
Like watching, hearing that Julian Edelman as an adult, as one of the first things he did after he retired, or I'm not sure if he was still playing with them. I don't remember. I'm not a Patriots fan, so I don't follow, but like, Julian Edelman had his bar mitzvah as an adult. And right around that same time, I saw Tiffany Haddish's comedy special on Netflix that also talked about her bat mitzvah and the stories that she was telling about like how she has Friday night with the Shabbat with the rabbi, as an adult. And I just like, because the thing is what happens, like, you have to make choices as a kid, especially like, depending on what you're doing with your family, but also like people come to Judaism, people like return to their faith, people like, come into Judaism as adults too. And so I like the fact that it is possible to have this ceremony as an adult, stories that the things that people bring to that table are kind of amazing. And the sort of commitment that it takes to have, as I said, like I'm still, if it's not entirely obvious, I'm still in awe of the commitment it takes to have that ceremony as an adult.
Yeah, I mean, I say that I hadn't heard of, but I actually have in Sex and the City. Charlotte converts to Judaism and goes through that whole process, and it's kind of funny because she takes it almost more seriously than Harry. And where she's like, well, we have to put away, we can't do the Christmas tree, and he's like, it'd be okay if you want, like, and she's like, no, absolutely not.
Yeah, like, I mean, it's when you make that commitment as an adult, when you make those choices as an adult, like I find that like it sort of like however it happens, like because it's so close to you, because it's so new, because it's not something you take for granted, obviously, it's just a different approach to it. And it's just interesting to see how that happens. Like, I don't know, like that. It's just a really interesting sort of conversation to have. Like what happened, like what brings you to the table, like what sort of,
yeah, that makes sense, because I mean, when you're a teen, you're more likely to do something out of, just respect for your parents and because it's just expected and whatever. Whereas like as an adult, like it's a choice, like you don't have to do it and you've chosen to do it. Yeah.
As I said, like when my brother's friend's mom did it, she had 2 kids and she had a really, really, she had a wife, she had a husband, she had 2 kids, and she had this like high powered job as an attorney. All of these things were things that she couldn't like let drop. There were the glass balls on the plate, and yet she made the time to have this bat mitzvah.
Yeah, interesting. How long does it take to
so it depends. The class in the book is actually based on a real class schedule that was given through my childhood temple. The class was based on a real class that was given through Temple Beth Abraham in Tarrytown. Props, major amounts of thank yous go to both Cantor Margot Goldberg and Rabbi David Holtz at that temple, who spoke to me about how the class actually went. So it takes anywhere from like a year to 2 years, depending on the process, depending on how they do it, depending on like what information is given. Generally speaking, the thing that I fictionalized was that usually it's a group ceremony, that usually it takes place actually right about now around the Jewish holiday of Shavuot, which is the holiday where the Jews receive the commandments. So 90% of the time what ends up happening is that, the entire class learns just a little bit for, and does something in the ceremony, does something in the service during the group date, and everyone has to share. For various purposes, I fictionalized the solo dates based on information and conversations that have happened for kids when choosing bar mitzvah and bat mitzvah dates. So the kid related stuff.
So that's a part you have for the ceremony. They really do this like matchmaking kind of thing. You have to have a date.
What happens is the following: people pick a date like years in advance. Like the 5th grade class, generally speaking, like 7th and 8th class, like has to choose a date in advance, because you have to make like arrangements for caterers and all that kind of stuff, and you have to know what Torah portion and Haftarah portion the child is going to be doing. Depending on the size of the congregation, depends on how many kids do share the day. It depends, as I said, it depends on the congregation, how that works. I had a solo when I was a kid because based on the amount of children that were in the bat mitzvah, the class of kids getting bar bat mitzvah. And there had been long and extended stories over the day. And if you talk to anyone who is a member of a congregation, either in a reform or conservative synagogue, you will find that there are stories about bar and bat mitzvah dates and who wants what and how difficult it is to get certain, great dates. So that is true. And the adult conversations that I have taking place about bar and bat mitzvah dates are sort of derived from that.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I mean, it makes for a nice setup for a rom-com because they're forced proximity. They're forced to work together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The sort of only one bar mitzvah date kind of thing was the joke sort of title of the book for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, what do you do when you have, I guess, writer's block, when you cannot think of what to do with the story?
I go back and think about the characters. I take the characters out of the story and think about what they would do in normal random situations to get their personalities. Because 90% of the time when I have what they like to describe as writer's block, it is because I made a wrong choice as a writer that a character would not do. That is what I have discovered as a writer.
That's interesting. Yeah.
The story is going in the wrong direction and I need to go back to fix something.
Yeah.
To figure out what that is, then it goes.
Yeah.
But to literally kickstart a writing process, I go from the computer to handwritten to my phone to whatever. I am someone who isn't precious about her writing process. I know some people are. I am not in any way, shape, or form. I will skip ahead, go backwards, edit as I go. Whatever needs to be done to get words on that page, I will do. The one thing that I don't like to do is outline.
So you're a pantser, not a plotter.
Oh, yes, and I am exactly. But I like to say I'm a planter because I never start writing if I don't know what the story is supposed to be. I need to know my beginning, I need to know where it's going, and I need to know my ending. I can't know specifics because but I need to know sort of the general, I guess they call them beats, I guess, but I need to know the events that happen.
Do you have like a writing group that helps you with your writing?
I have a bunch. I have, I have a bunch of different writers who I talk to and yell at, or yell with, or whatever. I'm a very lucky person in that I am a part of many, many, many groups. I have a bunch of keeps from my publisher that I'm close with. I have a couple of other people that I'm really, really close with through the Romance Shmooze Discord server. I have I have some New York writers who I miss desperately, but there are definitely different people that I talk with. And of course, one of my closest friends who is not a writer, but who does pretty much everything else is like a freaking goddess. And I talk to her semi-regularly. So her and my critique partner can yank me down off ledges.
Nice. So you moved from New York? I forgot that.
So I live in New York. It's just, so what ended up happening for me is that the pandemic and 2020 kind of altered a lot of things about my writing.
Yeah.
So and it kind of like separated me from a bunch of people, but like, well, good, it's life, right? Like life happens.
Yeah, and I feel like we're still kind of picking up the pieces from that whole experience. We're still kind of, I don't know, processing it in a way.
Okay.
I know I am. We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the good folks at Baker Publishing Group. If you are looking for the perfect romantic read this summer, we have the perfect solution. Not only are each of these 5 books fantastic, but we have interviewed all of these authors on the podcast, which will allow you to have a totally immersive experience with each of these stories. Here's some suggestions. First, Second Time Around by Melody Carlson. An empty nester Mallory Farrell inherits a rundown tourist shop. She never expects to rediscover her love for the funky coastal Oregon town or her now widowed teenage crush. With his help, she may just be able to renovate the shabby shop and her lackluster love life. Number 2, Windswept Way by Irene Hannon. Buying a supposedly haunted house wasn't in Ashley Scott's plans, but when an intriguing opportunity drops into her lap, she's ready to launch a new life. But she can't do it alone, and her reclusive new neighbor, Jonathan Gray, may be just the person to help. If only there were room in his life for romance. Number 3, The Words We Lost by Nicole Deese. 3 friends, 2 broken promises, 1 missing manuscript. Book lovers and contemporary romance readers, don't miss this new book from Nicole Deese. In The Words We Lost, editor Ingrid Erickson is given a sealed envelope from her late best friend by the man who shattered her belief in happily ever afters, and then sent on a hunt for a hidden manuscript that may finally lead to the healing she's been searching for. Number 4, In This Moment by Gabrielle Meyer. Calling all fans of Outlander and time travel romance, new from Gabrielle Meyer comes a dramatic time-crossing tale set in 3 separate timelines. Maggie inherited a gift from her parents that allows her to live in 1861, 1941, and 2001. Each night, she goes to sleep in one time period and wakes up in another. She faces a difficult journey to discover her true self while drawn to 3 worthy gentlemen before she must choose one life to keep and the rest to lose. And finally, The Heart's Choice by Tracy Peterson and Kimberly Woodhouse. Rebecca McCutcheon is the first female court reporter in Montana. During a murder trial she's convinced that the defendant is innocent, but no one but the handsome new Carnegie librarian Mark Andrews will listen to her. In a race against time, will they be able to find the evidence to free the man before it's too late? For any of these great books and more, go to bakerbookhouse.com today. That's bakerbookhouse.com, or use our Amazon affiliate link in the description. The B'Nai Mitzvah Mistake. And so would you say this one was the hardest of the books that you've done to write, or where would it rank for you?
Right now, number 2.
Okay.
Right now, second hardest for sure.
Uh-huh.
But I think like I've always had trouble with book 2s, generally speaking.
Okay.
History of Us was hard. This one was second, but it's also like, people talk about how you have a lifetime to write your first book and then like a short amount of time, to write number 2. This is kind of sort of like somewhere in between, where like I've had the series idea forever, but I didn't have this book idea. Like it had gone through so many different incarnations, and by the time I finally sat down to write it, I was world building partially because, of course, like one of the things you probably realize is that it takes place in the same world that Friendships and Festivals does. I do not entirely leave these characters behind, and there is a very particular reason for that.
I love that about romance writing. I feel like that's something that this genre does better than anywhere else, that you get invested in characters and then you're going to see them again.
Yep.
Yeah. The next book will be about some other person in the town or their family or the team or whatever it might be, but you're going to see those characters.
Yeah. Like I've always loved that series concept. And this series is actually my love letter to the romance, my first attempt at a love letter to the romance family trope. Like I've done Friends, I've worked on a hockey team. This is the first time that I've written a family. Like I put a family at the center, like, and I love those stories. Like I love the family tropes. Like I love reading stories of families and sisters and cousins, and like I love all of it. And so it's been interesting and fun in a lot of ways to take my first attempt at a family story. So
yeah. So why don't you tell the audience a little bit about the book and what the story is? We've danced around it, but for the record.
The B'Nai Mitzvah Mistake is about 2 people who are forced to share the same B'Nai Mitzvah day. They both come to the ceremony as adults for different reasons. Both are looking for kind of the proverbial what's next in their lives for a whole bunch of reasons, or what's missing in their lives for the same bunch of reasons. And they're forced to share the same date, except that forces the two of them to confront an incident that happened in their past. And they have to figure out how to fix it, how to fix them, and also thrive as people and have this ceremony.
Well, and they have this barrier because of what happened with him and her sister, who's also working as like an agent, and he kind of dumped her. And so she's really, really sensitive to that, and doesn't feel like she can date this guy. And that was an interesting dynamic. How'd you kind of come up with that? And was that, there was an interesting conflict for the story?
So one of the things that I was thinking about, like, I knew that there had to be some kind of barrier between them. I knew that there had to be something. And like, one of the things that I remembered was in the last couple of years, actually in the last 2 years, and it's kind of relevant because the player in question is playing for the Vegas Golden Knights in hockey playoffs right now. Player by the name of Jack Eichel, and he is one of many, but this young, promising, talented player got injured, and the team that he was with at the time refused to let him have the surgery he needed. And he demanded a trade, and there was a whole big, huge situation because he was a top draft choice the year that he was drafted. It was a whole big deal. Eventually he got traded to a team that would let him have the surgery, and he's now thriving. So that was one of many stories that kind of stuck in my head. And I was like, what happened? What could happen? Like, if something like that happened, like, how would that affect people? And it started with this idea of older sister, you know, the middle child in this family, had to pick up the pieces for her to ridiculously strong, you know, sort of like refusing to feel emotions baby sister who was crying on the floor. What would that do? How would that affect, you know, like, and so every time she sees this guy who through no fault of his own, because that was the other problem, I needed to write a situation that created this conflict where no one was at fault and everyone was at fault at the same time. Where like I could conceivably like redeem all of these people, right?
Yeah.
I wanted people to root for them, which is why I like tried to find something, and I was like, oh, an injury, that would work perfectly. That would be like sort of, because it's nobody's fault, right?
Mm-hmm.
None of what happens is anybody's fault. And I needed to be able to kind of get them together, and I needed to be able to have them sort of okay with everything. So the older sister, all she sees when she looks at this guy is her sister crying on.
Yeah. And she like won't talk to her sister. Or so you're just like, oh my gosh, please talk to your sister. Because when I knew that once she talked to him, her sister would be like, what are you talking about? And because she had held this, because seeing her sister so upset, she like kept her sister in that spot and hadn't let her grow as a human. Mm-hmm. And I think that's easy to do with our loved ones and family. We kind of keep them like at the most sort of defining moment in a relationship. So like, you know, you kind of might keep them, say, you know, like my brother went off to college when I was my older brother when I was 16. Mm-hmm. And so I think sometimes he kind of keeps me at 16.
Yeah.
And I probably do the same with him keep him at 18, you know, and we don't interact. We don't see, he lives in Oregon, so we don't see each other that much. And so it would probably change if we were in each other's lives a lot. But I think that's an easy thing to do with a family.
Yeah. And also like
anybody.
Yeah. And like, the thing is like, the whole, like, her not, Judith doesn't talk to Leah about this at all, because the
No.
last thing she wants to do is cause her sister pain.
Yeah.
Like, that's her mentality. No, I'm not talking to her about this because I don't want to cause her pain. And I definitely don't want to have this guy coming anywhere near her because I don't want to cause her pain on my day.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Like,
she won't.
that's
And
literally her philosophy. Like, I am not causing my family pain. I am not creating problems. No.
do you have siblings? Were you able to feed off of those relationships to develop Judith and Leah?
So I have a younger brother. We're 2 years apart.
Mhm.
But, and like, yes, there have been times where I've been like, misprotective, but I will be honest. I think partially, like, part of watching, I don't have a sister. I don't have, my best friend and her sister, who is also a very, very, very ridiculously close friend of mine. I've been friends with them for years, and watching them interact partially, I think, informed the way that Judith and Leah interacted. I think that, like, so like the combination of mine and their kind of experiences tied together, like, sort of generally speaking, to create the relationship.
Yeah.
I definitely borrowed more from my brother's family life when I wrote, I should say, Judith's nephew.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, that was fun.
That was fun.
So how did you come up with Judith and Ash as characters? Sounds like you were saying about that, the hockey player.
Yep. So there have been a couple of different things that I thought about. I've written hockey romance for a long, I wrote hockey romance for a long time. I still do.
Mm-hmm.
And this is kind of my hockey adjacent return, we'll say. This whole series is hockey adjacent in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the names actually that show up in the banquet are also characters from other stories that I've written. So you can kind of find the little afikomen in there. But so Judith, I needed someone who was competent, someone who was smart, someone who needed to find the hole, needed to sort of fill that hole in her life. And I had some fun with her too. Speaking of little bits of afikomen, you could also find the fact that, like, she was someone who was part of an incident that was slightly discussed in another book of mine. And she needed to be good, she needed to be efficient, she needed to be smart, and sort of like finding her own way in life. And so that's how we ended up with her. And then Asher was inspired in a lot of ways by a whole bunch of things, including a bunch of different hockey players and a bunch of different people that I've met him with. So kind of all tied together. And his desires and dreams. And one of the things that I really was excited to explore with Ash was the idea of, like, a very, very ridiculously recent retired hockey player deciding what's next. His choices in life were partially inspired by, my mom was a second grade Sunday school. My mom was a Sunday school teacher, like, for a long time. She started in 5th, taught kindergarten, and then did 2nd grade. And one of the things I remember from her 2nd grade classes, when she came home and she talked about her 2nd graders, they were adorable, but also she had the hockey boys. And the hockey boys had ridiculously early morning classes and came to Sunday school and fell asleep.
Yeah.
And, like, I started to think about, like, the kinds of choices that, like, a really, really strong, good hockey player would have to make later in his lifetime. Like, when, like, because again, we talk about the bar mitzvah and, like, what kind of commitment that is. It's time. It's, like, at least twice a week. It's going to services. It's learning everything. But what happens if your schedule doesn't give? What happens if it can't give? What happens, if you have to decide? I thought about those hockey boys and, like, the choices they have to make later in life. Like, I found out actually that one of the players that inspired Ash had his bar mitzvah at the age of 13, which completely surprised the ever-loving crap out of me. one of the others actually went to Jewish schools, but that's another story entirely. But for Ash himself, I was like, he just, he couldn't stay where he was from. He couldn't, so he had to go elsewhere. And that meant one of the things that had to go with his bar mitzvah. So.
Interesting. Yeah. So you have a lot of kisses in this book, and which I thought was very well done. Because she's trying to not be in this relationship, but she clearly wants to be in this relationship. So that was a fun dynamic. And that must have been fun to write.
It's interesting because like one of the things that I'm doing very slowly and very deliberately is adding what I like to call peppercorns to my books for this series, for sure. Like a very slowly, very gradual evolution. There was at least one scene in B'Nai Mitzvah Mistake that never would have happened. That never would have happened in Friendships and Festivals, and that is deliberate on my part. Very, very slow, very easy evolution. And one way to like show a relationship with that kind of pull is to start with those things, to start with the increasing the heat level, to show visible, demonstrable levels of affection on the page.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's still a pretty clean romance, though. I mean, that must be tricky, though, to find that, to build that romantic tension, still keep it like clean, a pretty clean romance. But also just find that balance must be tough.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, like I want everything to be gradual. Like I don't want someone all of a sudden going, what? Because we are slowly adding peppercorns. We are slowly adding bits of heat to the stories because the dynamics are different, the characters are different, the stories are different, the stories require different elements to them. And for a situation like the one in B'Nai Mitzvah Mistake, it was important for me to show two things entirely at the same time. Number one, I actually wrote the bat mitzvah speech. I had the entire bat mitzvah speech. And I had my dad, who is like pretty learned and pretty awesome, read it over for me. I don't just have that particular section of commentary, but I also at the same time increasing heat level. I'm doing those things at the same time, but very gradually, because I think it's important to do those things.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, Hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies.
When you're writing, do you think about who you would cast to play the characters?
Yes.
If there's a movie?
Yes.
So you have to ask, who would you put? Who are you thinking of for Judith and Ash?
So in my head, I forget her name. I think Emmy Rossum is Judith in my head.
Yeah.
Like she could walk into an audition and play Judith flawlessly.
Yeah.
Because in my head, I was already faced with the challenge of finding four similar, like four actresses who had a family resemblance.
Yeah.
So she's the first.
Uh-huh.
In my head, someone could very easily play Ash is Chris Pine.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's great. I love him.
Play those parts because Judith is very sort of like, very sort of like, flat shoulders, very sort of like business-like in person. And then Ash is kind of like, the song, I want to make a life, not a living. Like he's savoring life. He's savoring everything now. And he's, and they're that's the compliment to each other. Like,
Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah, that's yeah, but
yeah, who, if we weren't thinking of Hallmark, I could see like a Mark Ruffalo playing Ash. Like he would be good. I think. Maybe.
okay.
And I didn't think of Emmy Rossum, but she would be great.
I'm trying to remember his name, but like Nate in the back of my head. Oh God, what's his name? It's gonna drive me crazy. I remember an interview that he did, and that sort of cemented it for me because that's Nate completely.
What would be good also to play Judith is Rebecca Hall. She would be really good. I could see that pair, Mark Ruffalo and Rebecca Hall.
Yeah,
would be good.
I could totally, yes.
Yeah, that would be really good.
Yeah.
Well, what do you hope people take away from this book? What do you think is special about it? Most special about it?
Oh God. It's interesting because like, this is new this is completely new territory for me. I hope they like it. I hope it finds a place in their heart. I hope that people think about the things that I talked about and then maybe go and read I think it's called Game Misconduct by Evan F. Moore and Justina Shaw, and think about like more Jews and hockey and it's all bar mitzvahs and kind of like the joy of a family, I guess.
Yeah. All right. Well, very good. Well, we have already given you our regular questions. So we have a holiday questions, and we talked about off air that you can give the Hanukkah answers to the holiday questions. So, because it's Christmas, it's a winter holiday. So perfect. All right. So what is your favorite holiday drink?
I'm actually, so I go back and forth a bunch of different ways. I would love to drink a sufganiyot latte, which is something that actually the Barnes and Noble cafe years ago made for me, and I would love like this sort of like latte with like raspberry syrup and like really cool kind of stuff. But I forget exactly what we made of. But
what's it called again?
In reality, I'm a sucker for an eggnog latte, and I love salted caramel.
Yeah. What's the first one you said? What's it called?
A sufganiyot latte.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, cool. Okay. What is your favorite holiday cookie or treat?
Give me a sufganiyot. But also I'm a sucker for a good latke. Like give me all of them, but also like anybody who could make me like a gluten-free regalach or hamantashen, I get like very, very excited about.
Yeah. What's your favorite filling in the rugelach?
I love chocolate, but I mean I love chocolate. Like that's just chocolate is my favorite. But
okay. I don't think I've ever had one with chocolate.
Really good. Cinnamon is more of the tradition. It's interesting for me because cinnamon is not good for me for a lot of different random health reasons. So
I feel like I've only ever had them with fruit. Or like that poppy seed kind of.
Oh, the hamantashen?
Yeah.
So hamantashen, I love like prune and I love poppy seed. I'm allergic to apricot, so no apricot for me. But
yeah, yum. All right. What is your favorite holiday song?
So I have a bunch of them. Give me like Nefesh Mountain any time of the day for any reason. I love their stuff. Shine by Joe Buchanan has definitely found its way onto a lot of my holiday playlists for sure. I also what's it called? Lighting Up the Night by Jacob Spike Krause, I think it's called. It's really, really good, and it's really lighting up the window. It's really, really good. It's gonna show up in something else. And Miracle, I think it's by Eighth Day. I think it's Eighth Day. Is definitely gonna show up in another book. So.
Oh, cool. Okay, what is and you could have Chris, because I know you watch the Countdown to Christmas movies.
Yes.
You could have any answer, but what is your favorite holiday movie?
Oh my God. So if you've read Miracles and Menorahs, you can kind of find my love for Miss Christmas.
Oh, it's so good.
Also, Hanukkah on Rye and I have a soft spot for each other.
Yes.
You can kind of see like our shared love for Knishes and the Lower East Side and B'Nai Mitzvah Mistake. So it's kind of like really, really cool to see those conversations that both came in a movie and in one of my books that was like 6 months. So it was kind of like, it was really cool.
I feel like I remember you saying that when we did the recap.
And now that you've read the book, you can see what I'm talking about.
Yeah. It's true. Definitely. And that recap did really well for us. I mean, just on YouTube, we had over 2,000 views, and then the majority of our listens, so we had a lot of listens too. Considering it was sort of the end of the season, I was very happy about that.
It was a great movie, and like,
it was so good.
They and the writers absolutely deserve to sort of to hear that, to luxuriate in that.
Yeah.
Interesting fun fact. I'm trying to remember. Brain is not working today. What was she in? The central heroine of that movie. Who played her?
Oh yeah, she let me look it up.
Okay.
Yale Grobluss.
Okay, so mentally I have her as one of the four.
Oh yeah. So she was on Supergirl.
Yep.
Let's see, and some other Jane the Virgin. That was her big show.
Yeah. So mentally I have her as Naomi.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I can see that.
She is Naomi.
Yeah.
And Livy. Oh God, what was she in? The heroine, the woman who played the heroine in the recent Golem movie that they did.
Oh yeah. What did you think of that?
That was interesting.
It was not for me. I did not like it.
Interesting. I like the fact that it exists, and I like the fact that they're like incorporating random Jewish traditions and a whole bunch of things. It's an interesting movie, for sure. But mentally, I have the woman who plays the heroine of that as
well, she was good. It wasn't her fault. I just really did not like the script. I did not like the way I didn't think that either of these guys should be with this woman. I didn't like it was just not for me.
I will also say that I love to see Matt Cohen back in a Hallmark movie.
Yeah.
Since his first outing a couple of years ago, which
he's great.
He's really good.
And Aaron O'Connell, he's so good. But I just it was very frustrating for me. I was just like, you have everything to make something really great, and I just didn't like the script. But this Alexandra Tertian, she would be really good. I really, like I said, I really liked the whole cast.
Yeah.
That was part of what made it frustrating for me.
Yeah.
It's just but okay, next question. Which do you like better, Scrooge or the Grinch?
So I'm kind of ambivalent for both.
Fair enough.
Give me that Seth Rogen character in, I think it's The Night Before, that shows up with the Hanukkah sweater. You're like,
oh yeah.
Like, hi.
Yeah.
Because I think both of them kind of derive from different places that sort of like don't fit Hanukkah or don't like allow for Hanukkah, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Like Seth Rogen showing up in the Hanukkah sweater is everything.
That's fun. I like that movie. I don't understand why it got such bad reviews. That one I like. Yeah. Well, which do you like better, clear lights or colored?
Give me blue. Give me all the blue. Like,
okay, good. Yeah. Do you do a Christmas tree?
No.
Okay. Yeah.
We have all like random menorahs all over my house. So
nice.
I have decorated Christmas trees with friends. We do not have.
Because I know some like
Yeah.
they do a Hanukkah themed tree. I've
Yeah,
seen
like
that
I know
before.
in a lot of different interfaith households. It's really cool to see. Like the
Yeah,
sort of
yeah,
merging of traditions, the melding of traditions in houses in interfaith houses. But
yeah.
the more menorahs in my house, the better. Was kind of
That's good.
you know, the front window, the back window had one. Like we had window decals one year, couple of years. Like
Oh, that's
it's
cute.
yeah.
That's good. Okay, would you rather be in a snowball fight or build a snowman?
I kind of rather build a snowman.
Okay, good. All right. Would you consider yourself a good gift wrapper or not?
I'm very good at wrapping rectangles. I worked in a bookstore for 10 years.
Yeah.
So I am very good at wrapping rectangles. Anything else? And maybe like squares. I am awful at gift wrapping. I'm terrible.
So you're very size specific on your gift wrapping skills.
Yes, exactly. Or like the random like stuffed animal. I can do like the Tootsie Roll tissue paper gift wrapping, but like
Oh yeah.
That,
Good.
mostly because someone who I worked with, who I'd known still have known for years, taught me the perfect trick, because folding and I are not friends, but I like the trick that he taught me. I've used for everything since then, and people are just like, you wrap this? Yes, I know you fold things, but yes, I can wrap rectangles.
Yeah. If I really focus, I can, but a lot of times I'm not the most patient person. I think that's probably not a big surprise, but if I really focus, then I can do a good job. Otherwise I'm just like, it's fine.
No, if like,
I'm a big fan of the
5 hours focusing, forget it. Folding anything, it's always awkward and like crooked and weird.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of the stick on bow. Make life easy. Just
those I can do.
Yeah.
But like I can curl ribbon too, but like make me wrap a bot with a square box and forget it. Forget it. I'll be staring at it. I'm like terrified. like this up. Here, take it.
Well, do you have an ugly holiday sweater?
Yes.
Yeah, good.
Move them.
Nice. What's your ugliest of the sweaters of the two?
So I have there was a company called Geltbein that no longer exists. I have one of theirs that was this like argyle like cardigan, but the argyle pattern was dreidels. So like it was this random, like looking like ridiculously fun cardigan. It was all dreidels. Nice. And like different sides of the dreidel. So like with all the random letters and all the things, and it was great fun. And then I also I think was it Amy Fuller? Like someone, there was a gif of someone with a light up menorah sweater, and I have one of those too.
When they light up, that's always a good sign.
It's so much fun. I was like, because I am like the worst. It's so funny. Like I am, as I said, I am a huge fan of Hanukkah. It's my favorite. And any random nonsense that has Hanukkah related things on it, I am the perfect person for it, because I will be like, oh. Like I have pajamas, I have many shirts that my collection has grown. My most recent is from the Matzah Book Soups collection this past year. All I want for Hanukkah is books. So like you give me a funny Hanukkah saying on something and I am there.
Yeah. Maybe we need to add that to our merch store. We really should. I don't know why we haven't. We'll make that happen.
I'm trying to remember the name. Oh God, I now forget the name of the store, but it's this really, really cool store. And the designer, her name is Amy. She goes by Blueberry Lane on Twitter. And she made me a custom shirt. It said it was tis the down season, and it was this little like square that had a menorah, and she like talked to me about it. I was like, this is fantastic. So God, now I cannot remember the name, but it's her and April Rosie K on Twitter. They have this design store, and I think the link is in her Twitter bio. And it's the cutest thing. So
Cool. Very good. Well, you did it. You answered all the questions.
hey,
Congratulations on the
thank
new
you.
book. I'm very happy for you, and I hope people will check it out.
I'm excited and nervous as we get closer and closer to release day.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. My sister's, published author, and I've seen her kind of go through that process too.
Yeah, it's oh my gosh, what does she write?
She started out doing picture books,
Mhm.
and then she's now doing and she's done one not young adult, mid-grade
cool.
novel, and then she's also done some graphic novels, and she had a particular one that was a pretty big hit called Allergic, about a little girl who really wants a pet, and she can't because she's allergic. And
Oh my god.
yeah, so it's with Scholastic, so it's pretty
Awesome.
big. And she had horrible eczema, so we could never have pets because my sister was so allergic, and so it comes from her experience. And yeah, so I think she's sold at this point now 15 total books, something like that, a lot. And so it's pretty exciting.
It is. That's
Megan
awesome.
Wagner Lloyd, if anyone wants to check it out. But
Sure.
yeah. So, well, very good. And if people want to find the book, when does it come out, and how can they follow you on socials and all that fun stuff?
So B'Nai Mitzvah Mistake comes out June 1st from 2 Week Publishing or wherever books are sold. You can find me at staceyagdern.com or at Stacey A. Agdern on Facebook, S. Agdern on Instagram and TikTok, where I am solely a voyeur. I have not posted videos yet.
Okay.
And NY Stacey on Twitter.
Great. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all over social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. Check that out. And on Goodreads, you can find me on there. And you can follow the podcast, the Hallmarkies Pod and Hallmarkies Podcast, all over social media. And if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. That really helps us a lot. And if you are watching on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate that so much. We'll also have our affiliate links for all of your books in the description, so check those out. We would appreciate that. And we have the merch store and patron group, so lots of fun stuff going on. And we will be at Christmas Con coming up just when this airs. It'll be next week. So if you are going to Christmas Con in Kansas, definitely check us out. I will be there, and some other friends will be there, so make sure to say hi if you're there. But thanks so much, Stacey, and we'll talk to y'all later. Bye.